all games through the Christmas break. We will have the latest on that, plus the future of the Olympics and a few Islanders that really need to get going before the Islanders can start winning consistently. All that and more coming up on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast. So glad you could join us today for this episode and be part of the Locked On Islanders family. And thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. We have got a lot to talk about on today's show. The NHL canceling all games now through the Christmas break. That means that Thursday's originally scheduled game against the Washington Capitals will also be postponed. And we'll talk more about that, what it means for the Islanders, for the NHL, and for a lot of other factors a little bit later on in the show. We also have an email question from a listener about the Islanders' strategies in overtimes and shootouts. And we'll take a look at an Islanders player who really needs to start getting going because he is indeed a top six forward who has struggled pretty much all season long. I know there's a few guys who fit that description, but we're talking about one player today in particular. If you have something Islanders related on your mind, you have a question, a comment, a topic that you'd like us to talk about, feel free to email the show. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we are happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. And I am also live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. Always great to talk to fans. So please follow along, interact, talk about what's going on. It is always a lot of fun to talk Islanders hockey with you all. Let's get down to business right now. As I on Monday evening, the NHL announced they would suspend play starting Wednesday until after the Christmas break because of the latest COVID outbreak. The Omicron variant spreading very, very quickly, and a lot of positive tests from players causing problems right now. So, up until now, 39 games have been postponed over the last 7 games. The plan as of right now, and it does change, but teams will not even be able to return to their facilities until December 26th. Now, the league also made an announcement that they will make a decision in the coming days, quote unquote, regarding player participation at the Olympics. Now, the deadline is January 10th to opt out of the Olympics without financial penalties. That's for the players, NHL players participating. But as of right now, league sources have said to ESPN that it is highly unlikely that NHL players will be going to the Olympics. Now, let's talk about how this affects the Islanders a little bit, and then we'll get to our email. Obviously, when you got players in the COVID protocol, whether it's Matthew Barzal, or some of the other players, Matt Martin, these guys will have a little more time now to get healthy, and it is likely that they will miss fewer games. And it gives, again, players who are injured and out, like Ryan Pulock, less games that he's going to miss. So those are the benefits of the situation, but also drawbacks for the Islanders. But you know what? Every NHL team is now going to go several days, maybe a week, without playing in a game. And, unfortunately, the way things are this year, you got to roll with the punches, and nothing is guaranteed. So we'll see what happens. Now, our listener email, part of it does deal with the Olympics, and part of it deals with overtime and shootout strategy. So, first of all, our email is from Ken from Minnesota. He says, "Hey, Gil, I have to admit to being frustrated watching the Vegas game the other night or the other day as to why Cal Clutterbuck and Casey Cizikas aren't used in overtime and in shootouts. Cal has had a hot hand lately and has a good history on breakaways, as does Casey. They're both used on the penalty kill, so they're obviously defensively responsible players. To have had Josh Bailey out there, who is really struggling as of late, was very puzzling. On a different note, have you heard anything on what the IOC has planned if the NHL players decide not to go to the Olympics, as seems to be more and more possible with the new COVID outbreak? Will we see hockey at these games at all?" Well, Ken, first of all, thank you for your email, Ken from Minnesota. I'm going to start at the Olympic question now, because we did talk about that earlier. The plan, as of my understanding, and nothing is etched in stone, is that, yes, if the NHL doesn't send their players to the Olympics, the United States, Canada, and a number of other countries who have a lot of NHL players there will send alternative players, whether they are college players, senior, level players, or some other group of substitutes. The plan is to have hockey at the Winter Olympics, if indeed the Winter Olympics are even able to be held at all. But again, that could change depending on how this Omicron variant and the spread of it continues. And so we really don't know at the end of the day. I will keep you posted as soon as I hear something official. But as of right now, the plan is still for NHL players to officially go, although that is looking less and less likely. And if they don't go, then the countries will have a few weeks in order to figure out other rosters. But obviously, the tournament will not be as high profile as it would be under other circumstances. Now, as for Cizikas and Clutterbuck and their status during shootouts and overtime, the reason you don't see a lot of Cizikas and Clutterbuck during overtime, and what you said is true, they are responsible defensively, they're smart on the ice, but here's the deal. Overtime is 3-on-3. That means there is a lot of open ice, and Cizikas and Clutterbuck, let's just say they're not among the fastest players on the Islanders. And you could probably play one of them during overtime, but because there's so much open ice, they could become a defensive liability, not because they don't know where to go, and not that they're not positionally sound, but because they wouldn't be able to keep up and slow down the opposing players that they're facing. In overtime, teams tend to play their fastest skaters, their most dangerous offensive players. And if Cizikas and Clutterbuck can't keep up with them with all that open ice, that creates problems. Maybe you could put one of them out. I don't think you could put both of them out at the same time. In shootouts, it's a similar thing in that the shootout is minimum of 3 rounds unless one team is hopelessly ahead. You want to have your most dangerous shooters out there. And it's not that Cizikas and Clutterbuck aren't good breakaway players. And if they're hot, like Clutterbuck has been lately, he had the 2-goal game the other night, you might include one of them in your top 3. But if he's healthy, Matthew Barzal, most likely a better pick, Brock Nelson, Anders Lee, Noah Dobson, these guys usually would get the nod ahead of Cizikas and Clutterbuck just because they are more skilled offensive players and they would probably maximize your chances to score. So it is possible you see them, but it's more likely you see those guys if it goes 4, 5, or 6 rounds or more in a shootout, when the depth that you have starts to come into play a little bit more. We've got more to discuss on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. We'll talk about an Islanders top six forward who really has to get going if they're competing and putting together some wins. We also have our Islanders birthday of the day and a whole lot more to come on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Boost Mobile. Always good to hear from our friends at Boost. You listen to podcasts for the power of the inside track. You switch to Boost Mobile for the power of saving money. Because with Boost, you get the power of a free 5G phone so you could listen to the latest episodes and keep up with your favorite players and teams. The power of 3 unlimited data lines for $30 a month per line so your family can share all the insights, and the power of one of America's largest 5G networks so you could do it all at the speed of 5G. With all that money you'll save and all that edge you'll gain, just how powerful will you become? Switch to Boost Mobile and find out. Get a free Samsung Gallery A32 5G when you switch to one of America's largest 5G networks. More power to save. Boost Mobile. Free phone limited to new customers and 1 per line. Additional restrictions apply. Offers and coverage not available everywhere or for all phones or networks. See boostmobile.com for details. So there's an Islanders player right now who is slumping big time, and I'm going to talk about him a little bit today, referring right now to Kyle Palmieri. And he really has not scored a goal since November 6th. That is more than enough. Yeah, he missed a few games during that time, but he hasn't scored. And that was the last of the Islanders back on November 16th. And his last point was an assist in the very first home game at the UBS was on November 20th. Since then, Kyle has played in 9 games, has no goals, no assists, has taken a lot of penalty minutes, and in all of those games, he has been a plus when in any of them. In fact, last game he was a +1 win against Winnipeg on November 6th. For the season right now, Palmieri has really just sort of dropped off the table. Guy who has been a top 6 forward almost all year, has played in 25 games, earning, he has $1 a year. 25 games, 1 goal assist, -11 for penalty. Average time over 16, 18 per game. On 25 games, 1 goal. That is a 3, maybe 4 goal pace. And out of 20 pace, it's not going to get it done. And Kyle Palmieri, Long Island native from Smithtown, likable guy, does put in the work here right now. You cannot be a top 6 forward on a team that struggles to score goals and have this kind of a record. And, you know, we talked last year about Palmieri struggling during his regular season play with the Islanders at trade deadline. He was in 17 games, had goals and 4 points. Goal scoring is behind that pace. His assists are slightly ahead. And he already had 25 games, more penalty minutes last year in 1 game split between New Jersey and the Islanders. He has 37 in 25 games so far this year. Keep in mind, he's high in the NHL for penalty minutes, 46, set back in 2017. So Palmieri, the problem with his play, reason that he's taking a lot of penalties, he just doesn't seem to be in the right place at the time. He's a slash hooking, all of those that you take when you're out of position and you're beaten and you need to catch up. So it's, 25 might in the minus. That's not getting it done. And even on 57 shots hole, not terrible. But one percentage, 8. His career shooting percentage is 12. One, he has got to do better. Look, Palmieri played on the top line. He played on the second line, third line. But, if you're playing, it's not like you're playing you who don't finish if you $5 million a year, producing anywhere near Jordan Eberle's salary than Eberle is. We need Kyle Palmieri to step up and start to play. 30 years old. 41st. Say, yeah, he's washed up. The player he was 5 years ago when he was in his prime, but he should be still able to contribute at a higher level than he is. And again, with the season slowly slipping away, the Islanders need Palmieri to start producing. Let's even say a point every other game, 10 games. Doesn't have to get risk. Gotta get to right now. He is not getting it done, and it's something the Islanders you get. Andrews go up. All stats go up. Whoever the line will varies increase production. But it has to happen, and as right now, it looks like it is in 25 games. Do better than Wolves in those 25 contests. They win. Teams who play next week. We're to get on the Islanders podcast. We've got our Islanders birthday today on Islanders podcast. This episode is brought to you by your friends at BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues the march to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. So head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today, and you'll receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you use the promo code LOCKEDON. That's one word, promo code LOCKEDON, to receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That is free money to bet on site at betonline.ag because you listen to the Locked On Islanders podcast. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, so check out BetOnline, where the game starts. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day. Yesterday, Monday, was the 51st birthday of former Islander center Travis Green. Second round, 23rd overall back in 1989. Now, today, 23rd overall pick would be a first-round pick. So, yeah, there is that. At Travis Green, Islanders, after a successful junior career in Spokane and Medicine Hat, 293 season, and stayed with the team through the 97-98 campaign when he was traded to Anaheim, later played for the Coyotes, Maple Leafs, Bruins, back to the Ducks and back to the Maple Leafs before finishing up his professional career in 2007-2008 in Switzerland. After that, he did go on, coached the Vancouver Canucks, basically until recently when he was let go and Woodrow coaching Vancouver, got the third round of the playoffs 2020. In his NHL career, Travis Green with the games, almost 1,000, 970, 193 goals, 455 points. You could add 56 playoff games, 10 goals, 21 points in those. We're going to go back and look at one of his better games as an Islander, December 23rd, 1995. So basically 26 years ago this week at the Nassau Coliseum, Islanders hosting the Washington Capitals. Ole Kolzig, the goalie for the Caps, Tommy Soderstrom, in between the pipes for the Islanders, who were wearing their fisherman jerseys at that point. Scoring in the first period, but in the second period, Derek King gets the Islanders the lead. His seventh from Marty McGinnis and Pat Flatley. Time of that goal, just 36 seconds into the period, Isles up by a goal. It didn't last all that long, with Brett Severin off for tripping. Pat Peake tied it for the Caps, his seventh from Michael Pavanka and Peter Bondra at 4:23. But late second period, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Travis Green gets his 10th of the year. Ziggy Palffy and Milan Tichy get the assist at 18-19, 2-1 Islanders after two. In the third, the Islanders' power play goes back to work. Pavanka off for holding. Travis Green, our Islanders' birthday of the day, scores his second of the game, 11th of the year. Matthew Schneider and Wendell Clark with the assists at 9:26. That was all she wrote. The Islanders skate away with a 3-1 win, 21 saves for Tommy Soderstrom to earn the victory. For Travis Green, our Islanders' birthday of the day, 2 goals, a +1, 4 shots on goal, which was tops on the and he did have the game-winning goal. So a nice, productive game there for Travis Green. Is our Islanders' birthday of the day. Monday was his 51st. Springs probably the New York Islanders, right? And still trying to get back on track. Group. They're going to be home now, the players, until after the holiday. And you take it one day at a time. Over the last almost 2 years now, so much uncertainty. I know we've all been dealing with in our lives, and I guess hockey players are no exception. hopefully they will be able to get back and finish this season and keep everybody safe. And we will always keep you up to date right here on the Locked On Islanders podcast on all the latest NHL news and notes, especially as it pertains to your New York Islanders. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Tomorrow, we will have our weekly farm report, plus the latest news concerning the Olympics, the COVID shutdown, and everything else happening about your New York Islanders. Until then, stay safe. Have a great day, everybody. Let's go Islanders.